So what makes cable wrangling so important that I need to dedicate an entire video with a 3 video series to it? It can hinder you from doing your job. Let's start with if you are tethered to your sound mixer, you're not using a wireless boom system. That's going to be extra cable. You have to run and route through walls, around areas. Make sure camera doesn't see it if you're inside of a room and there's only one door in or out and there's no windows. There's a lot for you to have to manage there. You have to keep the dolly from running over it. You have to route it around, if talent's opening and closing the door, you have to manage that carefully. There's a lot of reasons why you might have to do this. If you're doing loud gunshots, for example, you're using a digital microphone like the Super Cement 2U, Sheps, something like that, where you actually need that system cabled in order to have your sound mixture pull in your sound. Transmission maybe not be an option. There could be a lot of RF in the air, and you have to go cable for that reason. Whatever the reason is, I strongly recommend you taking the belt loop on the back of your belt and taking a loop of that cable and running it up and into the belt. Maybe make it stick up a good couple, a few inches. I'd say, what I usually do is I stick it up about a good 6, 8 inches. The reason I do this is if I have to move and my cable gets snagged on something, which they will no doubt do at some point, I feel it start to pull out of my belt and I know that I'm caught on something. I'll sometimes stop, I'll turn around, look at somebody who realizes that they're now standing on my cable because they felt pull on their foot, and they'll step off of it, then I can go. It gives something that provides a little bit of a clothesline effect, and they feel it and they're like, whoa, 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 what's that? If not, I can always look back at them. I can, be like, dude, you're standing on my cable, with a look, and they'll probably get off the cable if they're looking that direction. However, if you are not cabled and tethered back to your sound mixer, you are doing a wireless boom, then you have a lot more flexibility to do what you need to on set. And if, of course, you are not cabling your boom at all, if it's not even externally wrapped, if you're just putting your transmitter directly on the end of your shock mount and then having it on the microphone end of the boom pole, that of course weighs it down more, but there are advantages too. You don't have to worry about any kind of cables at all. You don't have to worry about that cable. The only cable you actually have to worry about is going from the shock mount to the transmitter itself. And that transmitter is also flying high over set because it's over the reactor's head. That's not going to be in an area where there's a lot of interference because you're not there in in camera land where they're using their Prestons and their transmitters back to Video Village or whatever the case may be. You're not having to worry about all that kind of stuff. It's all out there at set, and there's hopefully not going to be a lot of interference that it's going to run into because there's a lot of stuff that would be on camera otherwise, like lighting gear or something. Now, if you are internally coil cabling your boom, then that's fine. Your transmitter then is going to be on the back end of your boom, the one that's farthest away from the microphone, and that's counterweighting you to a certain degree. But if you do either externally wrapping of your boom cable, which a lot of people do, or you do any kind of internal straight cabling, cable management is something very, very important to you. Because all it takes is you snagging your cable on a dolly, on a computer monitor during walk and talk, or on a C-stand or something like that that's nearby, and suddenly you're pulling something down, you're making noise, you're doing something that's going to affect your sound or your performance and ability to get that good sound. So in order to reduce or eliminate that possibility, you have to keep your cable close to you. Now, I started a few years ago. I used to just keep things in my pocket. I would keep a Leatherman in my pocket, next to my keys and my wallet and other things I would carry on my side, my phone. But if I started to bulk up in my pockets pretty quickly, and it started driving me nuts. And it just, I don't like feeling too many things in my pockets. It weighs me down on my hips. I don't like the way it feels there. I prefer to get more stuff off of my hips. So of course you say, well, then why did you add a clip-on belt pouch? Well, because it actually was all hanging off of this one area, not all the hips universally around there. Plus, it wasn't hindering and pulling my pants as I'm trying to walk. It made sense to me. It worked well for me. Now, this clip-on belt patch had a few issues with it. Number one is it flopped anytime I did a walk and talk. And as a matter of fact, I did a walk and talk with Cuba Gooding Jr., and he didn't say a word, but after the first take, after he talked to the director, he turned and looked back at me, looked straight at where that belt pouch was, and looked forward again. Now, I was using a very directional microphone, a Neumann KMR82i, so I wasn't really hearing it except way down the mix, which I did notice it, but it was way down the mix. Post could easily get it out, and it was not bothering my sound mixer. It was a low down thing in the mix. But he noticed it because as he was walking, he was hearing flap, flap, flap. He wanted to know what that was because it was distracting. Didn't say anything, but I said at that point, the belt pouch has to go. So the next thing I did is I saw people on set wearing vests, and from doing martial arts younger and sometimes taking some fun pictures, I was wearing a vest in some of them that I got from a military type place. And I said, you know what? That was actually a pretty cool thing. Let me look into that. So I went to a military and police supply company and I looked at their vest and I found one that I really liked and I bought one. Um, that place has since closed, and I did find them on Amazon after that. But that particular vest, in order to find one that was going to work for me on set, it had to be quiet. And that meant, of course, cotton, which, of course, in 100-degree summer heat here, it gets to be very, very hot because the material of the vest itself isn't just single layer cloth, it is double layer cloth. And then, of course, they take pouches and they sew it on the front and on the back, on the inside of it as well. So inside and outside of this thing. So now all of a sudden the vest has gone from 2 layers. It is now, because of the front and back and all the extra weight, up to 6 layers thick, which is extra, extra, extra hot and drove me kind of crazy. But I did manage it, and just by simply hydrating and stuff during the summer, you're able to get through it. Wasn't as bad in the winter because it was adding a little bit of extra warmth. But the thing that was about that was that it added a lot more bulk, and I felt the need to put things in the pockets. I only needed about half the pockets they had on there, and I wasn't about to remove them. But it got to be one of those things where I was like, well, I'm going to start carrying some stuff for planting. I'm going to start carrying some stuff. I started carrying so many things that I don't use, but maybe 2% of the time I'm booming. The only real things I carry around with me that I need to carry around with me when I'm booming is my sides and my mag light and my utility tool. Really anything else, and I can keep someplace else. That's not going to be a problem. I got to get a transmitter anyway. Might as well get something to put a plant on there when I get the transmitter and the microphone for planting, right? Makes sense. So I started doing that. Now, I then started to, since I had my caddy only 20 feet behind me, I started keeping a lot of stuff there, or I'd keep it in some sort of a cubby or something like that on the utility cart, which of course they love me putting extra stuff on their utility carts. Yay, Alan. Um, anyway, but if I were to need anything, I don't need to necessarily keep it on me if it's not one of those things I use most often. Most of the time, 98% of the time, I have my sides, which I use most often. Then I have my flashlight, and then I have my utility tool. The only exception is gloves. As a person that does any kind of cable wrangling, you want to wear gloves. The reason this is important is because imagine that you're cabling outdoors, running it through the woods. You don't know what you're going to run that cable over. You could run it over a pile of, you know, dog doo or animal doo of any kind, through a dead animal, through some sort of mud, gunk, grime, poison ivy. Any of these things could be very bad for you to put your hands on, especially if you're going to then turn around and adjust a lavalier microphone on your actors. So you don't want to do that. You want to wear gloves. And of course, as soon as I started adding more and more things, it started bulking up again. So, that which for a while wearing the vest, it worked for me. But then after a while, I said, I'm just going to start carrying the things I carry most with me up here on my core. Sides go right here in this chest rig. This is a chest rig I found on Amazon because I did look at film tools and other places as well, but none of them suited me because they all have a place for a walkie, and I, of course, don't wear a walkie on set. And this right here is small. It's everything I need it to be right here. Plus, it has this extra little pouch in there that allows me to, number one, keep my gloves in. Number two, which of course I can move into a better place, but number two, I can put my keys and my wallet and whatever else in there if I choose to as well. Doing walk and talks, for example, it allows my pants to free up. Additionally, one of the reasons that I like the vest is because when I used to do cable wrangling, I would, before the vest, I would end up pushing it through my belt. I might have a carabiner or something like that. And it basically was not as effective as I would like it to have been. But then as soon as I got the vest, it had different places to clip things on. And that's when I got the idea of a key fob. You know a key fob. These things you basically put, you clip this in onto your keys, put this around your belt loop, and it allows you to have your keys flopping at your belt, which is the way police officers and stuff do it. It's not necessarily ideal for a boom op because you don't want to hear that noise. But if you reverse it, clip this onto, it does clip onto your belt. As a matter of fact, I've done that as well. It keeps this extra little flap of leather that you can use right there to put your cables on. So for example, I have a boom like this. Notice, of course, sorry for this connector hitting that. I keep Velcro on this end of my boom. That doesn't bother me because it allows me to quickly and easily keep all my cable right there at the end. Now, if I were to run this cable out, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to go off headphones here, so pardon the headphone here. If I were to run this cable out someplace, I know on this particular boom that if I go like this and like this, that is the length of one of my boom segments. So if I put this on this boom pole, right, great, standing on the cable. If I put this on there, the length of this segment right here is identical to what I just coiled up right there. You know this kind of thing over time, and of course, if you practice it. Now notice I'm cabling this the wrong way. Normally, you would actually cable pointing away from you like this. I do for one very, very good reason here on my booms. And that's because if I were to cable this out like this, and I were to clip it onto this key fob right here, then this cable here is what connects it to my boom. I'm holding this boom over my head. Now, if I want to do this properly, let's say that I'm getting ready to boom. I'm going to go over here. This id would be on my MM1 or on my transmitter or something like that in my pocket because I do internally coiled. I'm going to say, well, I'm going to go out a little bit. I'm going to go maybe out 6 feet. Okay, so right there, because I'd have the pole up, I might keep an extra length or two on me, but for our purposes here, I'll keep an extra length just to at least show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so I clip this right in here. Boom. Now it's clipped on. Now look at this. If I hold this up now, look at all this extra cable. Sure, I can go froom, froom, and keep all this up on my core, but if I do that, it better hopefully be because I'm planning on extending out a little bit farther during the middle of the take, because otherwise all this extra length is going to potentially catch on something. I have had it catch on my elbow like this. It starts to drive me nuts and I have to do this number. You don't want to necessarily do that. If you don't have to run extra cable out, I don't like to do that. What I would do is I would pull all the cable that I'm not using up to right here, put it on top of this, and then extend it out. Now, notice now it is now pulled completely to my body. It's now up on here on my core. The cable is very snug to my body, but if I need additional, I could pull it out of that key fob because it is now loose and hanging around my waist. Sometimes you might need to get that cable further out of your way and you could wrap it around your arm at that point, but I don't necessarily recommend doing that as a general practice because it's going to hinder yourself if you end up suddenly going back. It's now jamming and pulling my arm. Don't do that. So I'd say that if you have to slide your hand forward for whatever reason, pull back. This keeps it close to your body, but yet it does not hinder your movement. And of course, you're not going to hook it on anything, or I shouldn't say anything. It's not going to most likely hook on something because it's a lot tighter to your core. Now, if you have an internally coiled cable and you need to route from an external coil from that boom to your belt pack or whatever, then you have to, of course, pick a cable with a very short coiled cable. If it's too much length, it's going to hang and you know, accordion, not accordion, what am I saying? It's going to be like a slinky, having a slinky hanging down. It's going to flop all over the place. You don't want that. You want to keep it close. So by doing that, then it's going to, by having a short cable, I should say, it's going to keep it very tight from your boom to wherever your transmitter is. But strain relief it on both ends because you don't want to put all that extra coil tension on your connector. So by doing this right here, I keep it on my core. I keep it on my person. Now, a lot of people I talk to will do something totally different. This extra cable length here, you have to find a place for it. If you don't have a key fob like this or have a system in place, then you could always do something like this. If you have a chest rig, I should say. That way, if you need extra length, of course, by then I might actually cable it the right way. That way I do pull off the right end. So if I needed extra cable, if it was right here, I can pull off an extra length right here as I'm extending out my boom, put on another one, and now it's completely, you know, to my core. That might be a circumstance when I would cable it the right way, but the way I currently use it, when I pull it off of the key fob, dropping another length or something like that, that's what's effective for me. So regardless of what you do and how you do it, find a system for you that works well for keeping your cables close to your core at all times and allows you to quickly adjust if you need additional cable. That's a very important thing. Have a question you'd like answered or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.